Welcome to Embodied Microdosing, where we explore the miracles that happen when we combine intentional doses of sacred mushrooms with trauma-informed somatic practices. Hi, I'm Rai, and this ministry is on a mission to help you embody healing. Let's answer your questions and call in expansion so you can integrate these highly effective evidence-based tools into your journey. Embodied microdosing is where science and spirituality meet to awaken the healer within. Let's take one conscious breath together. And begin. Here we are. It's another episode of the Embodied Microdosing podcast, and you're tuning in. I'm so glad you're here, whether you've been listening regularly or if the episode title and those key letters ADHD is what stood out to you. I just want to welcome you and invite you to really let what I'm going to share today just wash over you. Take in what makes sense, meditate and chew on what feels like yummy food for thought for you, and completely let go of anything that does not resonate with you. This is the power that you have as a consumer. There is no one right opinion, and I'm going to share some opinions. Yes, a lot of them based on research and things that I've heard and things that I've studied and read, a lot of them based on my own personal experience as a human navigating the world with the slap it on label of ADHD. Let's put the air quotes on every time I say that. And some of it just what's coming through my channel for the collective from the collective. So take it for what it's worth. Let's dive in and talk about healing ADHD with microdosing. Is it even possible? And the answer from me, the human, is absolutely 1000%. This is such an important topic because let's face it, everybody's got ADHD. I don't know if you're listening, you might, or someone you love might be living with this diagnosis, let's call it. And what I want to challenge you around today, before we dive into the specifics around how to use the sacred mushroom to heal this adaptive response in you, is that I really want to invite you to see the ADHD label not as a fixed diagnosis or a limitation, but as a nervous system response, as a trauma response, as something that you or that person you love adapted probably a long time ago, but very much so more in the last 10 years of smartphones and social media having squirted a whole bunch of kerosene on the fire of inattentiveness, for sure. And just lean into the idea that the trauma word might be a trigger. Let's call it stress for the purpose of this episode. Same. That this is a trauma response. This is a stress response. This is a way that your nervous system learned to adapt. And you can be the creative, neurodivergent, amazing human that you are, loving and embracing the gifts that come with this diagnosis for sure. And you can also heal the aspects of ADHD that are keeping you from living a full, actualized, authentic experience as you. So here's my story. I was diagnosed with ADHD 15 years ago. My first son was a little guy. Maybe it was longer. He may have been about 1.5, 2. Yeah, so 15 years ago. He just turned 17. And I remember really struggling every day, but one particular day to make it to the playground for like 11 a.m. to meet up with the group of friends that I was hanging out with then, to let my 2-year-old burn off some energy, climbing up the stairs and going down the slide, and just to get to the park. And it was, to say it was a monumental effort is a massive understatement. It was so hard for me. And at this time, I was not distracted by a cell phone to just get me dressed, get him dressed, do the bare minimum. I don't even care that much about what we look like, right? There wasn't like a whole bunch of societal pressure on me, but just to get us out the door and to arrive somewhere. And I remember I finally got there about an hour late. I was so flustered. I was so overwhelmed. Granted, I had a 2-year-old for the first time, and I don't think I've fully understood that like life with a toddler at that age is just such a challenge. And I remember just bursting into tears at my friend who met me there, who was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And just, I sat down at the edge of the playground. I sobbed so hard. And I just said to her, I literally can't. I can't do basic things anymore. And really, I think I had struggled for a long time, but adding a 2-year-old in was like just too much. And she said to me, well, you just, you have a list of things you need to do and you can put it on the list, or there's a list in your head, and then you just go down the list and do those things. Right. And she was trying to be loving and helpful. This is an extremely neurotypical person, like very neurotypical, very type A. And I remember I stopped crying and I looked up at her, and this is exactly what I said was, there's a list in your head. There are steps, right? And she sort of looked at me like, there's not a list of steps in your head. And that's when I remember thinking, I need help. I really need help. This is too much for me. So I made an appointment with a psychiatrist. I don't even know the difference anymore, whichever one can give you meds. And even then, my, natural childbirth, breastfeeding, do it the most natural way possible self said, it's not working. I need help. So I remember doing the assessment. I mean, this guy was great. He spent 3 hours working through every detail of the assessment with me to make sure we got an accurate diagnosis. That was important to me. I didn't want to just self-label. At this time, there was not a lot of information on the interwebs, especially about women and ADHD 15 years ago. It's huge now. And at the end, he said, I think it's pretty clear what's happening here with you. Would you like a prescription for stimulant medication? And I said yes, and expressed my hesitations. And he said he would walk me through the whole process. He really was wonderful. And then I remember as we were wrapping up, I said something like, well, I guess it's really nice to know that, like, I'm a little bit ADHD and I need some help. And I remember saying a little bit ADHD, like, it's nice to have a diagnosis. And he looked up at me and he took his glasses off and he said, my dear, those were the exact words, my dear, you are much more than a little ADHD. And I laughed. And it was kind of the stamp that I needed to feel more okay with the fact that my brain was actually functioning very differently than that of my friend at the time who I was meeting with at the park. So I went on a stimulant medication, and I had the same experience that a lot of people do when they first go on it. I felt normal. I felt like, whoa, is this what other people feel like on a day-to-day basis? I felt calmer. So if you tend to feel hyper when you take a stimulant, you probably don't need it. It actually can be calming in that more neurodivergent brain. And I was able to start, like, literally getting out of my pajamas before noon and getting out to parks and doing what I wanted to do with my life at the time, and starting to teach and support and guide other women. So happy story there. Is that a happy story? The end, right? Here I am 15 years later. I am no longer on stimulant medication. Spoiler alert, I went off of stimulants permanently only about a year and a half ago. So for the past 15 years, with the exception of a 3-year period when I was pregnant and breastfeeding my second son, I would pretty much be on stimulants. Ritalin was my stimulant of choice. I didn't need much. I found that most practitioners, I ended up moving to other doctors, overprescribed in a big way. And the huge doses would make me clench my jaw and have trouble sleeping, and were addicting in a lot of ways. I mean, it's coffee, it's a stimulant, it's crack, it's speed, it's cocaine, it's a straight stimulant. And I was able to use a very moderate dose, and over the last 15 years, really work with my neurodivergent brain and work with the part of me that gets distracted or hyperfixated on things. Those typical ADHD type responses, the hyperactive response, all of those classic responses that I'm not even going to name, learn to work with them to the point where when I started doing really good deep nervous system work about 3 years ago, when I really got deep into this, for the first time ever, the stimulants made me feel awful. They made me feel hyper. They made me feel clenchy. They made me feel all of those things that I felt when I was ODing, except I was literally taking 5 milligrams, y'all. And then breaking that in half to a 2.5. So something really clicked for me about 3 years ago. I was like, oh, I actually don't think I need this anymore, because I'm healing the parts of me that need to dissociate and distract in order to cope. And this is out of alignment again, or permanently or forever. I have zero desire to go back on stimulants medications. So I have learned a lot about how to focus, how focusing is actually a muscle to build, a skill, a tendency to heal. And today I want to share a little bit more about what's helped me scientifically and personally, and talk a little bit about how to use the sacred mushroom to support your journey to becoming more focused. If you're feeling the call to microdose but unsure about where to start or to source, the Embodied Microdosing Sacrament Shop is a safe and sacred space for you to explore. Inside, you can find pure, organic, handcrafted tinctures, including our 2 mushrooms, psilocybin and Amanita muscaria, both designed for your healing, grounding, and connection. We also have flower remedies like rose, lavender, holy basil, just perfect to complement your mushroom microdosing practice. All of these liquid remedies are easy to dose, very tasty, and can be taken directly in your mouth or added to your tea or water. If you're curious about how they feel, you can read some of the testimonials inside the shop for inspiration. You can explore all of the offerings at embodiedmicrodosing.com/shop. These are sacred remedies for spiritual self-healers. That's embodiedmicrodosing.com/shop. More grounded. So let's just talk about ADHD as a trauma response first. ADHD it's described as a disorder as if it's like an actual diagnosis, like someone was born with the genetics for muscular dystrophy, for example. So there's nothing they can do about the fact that they have muscular dystrophy. And ADHD has started to be talked about, all these things that end with the word disorder has started to be talked about in the same way. Like, this is just something you're born with. It's just genetic. You are just this way. And I really want to call bullshit on that, y'all. Yes, you are just more creative. Yes, you are just built to be a little less type A and a little more type B. And that's a beautiful thing. More dynamic, more intuitive, more psychic. All of those things are often true when it comes to the ADHD brain. And this is not something you were born with. If you want to debate me on that, go look at the work of Gabor Mate. He has extensive research. The book Scattered Minds or Scattered, it's got 2 different titles depending on where you are in the world. I think the American version is Scattered. It's incredible. And through his research, he shows that ADHD develops as a trauma response. It is a way of coping with stress. It is a manifestation of the flight response, really. So, okay, let's spell this out. And this is the example he gave on a podcast I listened to that really blew my mind. He asked, so you're a small child, perhaps, let's say this child is in preschool, right? At that age when we're learning so much about the world around us, 2, 3, 4 years old, and you are told something or you are feeling something, some stress. Maybe your parents are fighting. Maybe you are at daycare and you've got to be a certain way, but there's a baby screaming in the crib near you, right? And your little system is stressed out. Doesn't have to be extreme trauma, but of course it's going to develop in extreme trauma as well. It can just be a stressful situation, which, our world is kind of inherently stressful, right? And that little 2, 3, 4-year-old is told to do something and they don't want to do it. Maybe it's sit down, right? Or stop crying, or time to eat lunch, right? And the first response of any nervous system is to fight. Okay, no, I don't want to. No, I don't do it. That's like a favorite of a 2 and 3-year-old, right? And that fighting is only going to get them so far in the face of an adult and a system and a schedule and a set of things that needs to happen, right? Let's think practically too. I'm a mother, like we can't let the 2-year-olds run the planet. And that no doesn't really work. So the second response of the nervous system is to flight, is to leave. We fight first and then we leave. 2-year-old turns around, runs away from the table, not going to do it, right? Not going to nap, not going to eat, not going to do the thing. I'm too stressed. This isn't working for me. My system is overstimulated. Caregiver, parent picks that child up, sits them right back down again. Okay? You cannot leave. You must stay. You must do the thing I'm asking you to do, right? So they can't fight and they can't flight. So what is the next thing that they can do? They can check out. They can still leave. They can still avoid the stress. They can still dissociate in their mind. And that's what I did as a little person. I just went away. And that looked like being distracted by my own fantasies, my own thoughts. That looked like coming up with new and creative ideas for how to express myself and playing them out on the stage inside of my mind. What did it look like for you when you went away from and coped with the stress of being a little person inside of your own system? You went away. Okay. And if you do that enough, again and again and again, as a coping mechanism, it becomes a very well-worn set of superhighways inside of your brain and your nervous system. Here's what we do when we're even remotely uncomfortable or stressed. We distract. We go to something else. We leave this thing immediately and find something else to do. It's really brilliant and a really nuanced and subtle, tricky manifestation of the flight response, as I said. And those neural pathways really develop around avoidance and dissociation. And so then the modern world is just accelerating of any ADHD tendencies. I mean, the reason that every other person is diagnosed now is because the volume is turned up so high on all of our stress response, and we're all collectively dissociating and experiencing the symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Okay. Our culture rewards this constant novelty and distraction and multitasking. I mean, look at the fucking social media feed. It's literally just a flick of the thumb before you can get another hit and be further distracted from the discomfort of having to unload the dishwasher, right? Having to care for a home, having to care for children, having to do the things that as a new mother were maddeningly boring to me and still are. Homemaking and child rearing and family stuff is some of the biggest stuff that I struggle with wanting to avoid and get all ADHD around because I don't like it. And why don't I like it? Well, we could go into this. I mean, I've got generations of women before me who didn't like it either, who wanted to work, who wanted to not be in that traditional caregiver role. And that was modeled for me. And also, I grew up in a big family, and I love my family, and they've taught me so much. And the experience of being around other noisy humans in the home, sharing a bedroom, sharing toys, eating food I didn't like that maybe gave me a stomach ache, but it's the only option. So eat it or go hungry. All of that big family, grew up in poverty stuff, God love my parents, was inherently traumatizing to a deeply sensitive little human like me who was born more perhaps creative, intuitive, dynamic, and did the best that I could to cope with noise and stimulation the best that I could, which was to check out, to distract, to work, to do good in school, to do good at theater, and to get praise for being creative and funny and all over the place. Kind of developing a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit, of an identity around the ADHD tendencies. So I really want to just emphasize here that, healing ADHD doesn't mean that you let go of the creative, dynamic, intuitive, psychic being that you are. It can mean that you can step into more of your gifts, truthfully. But I think there's this initial fear for a lot of neurodivergent people to heal this, not only because they identify with it as part of their identity, for sure, and I want to talk more about that, but because the manifestation of the stress response is actually kind of the portal where some of these gifts come through. So for some people, when you start to heal the trauma, you might find that you're not as intuitive initially, that the channel that was coming through is compromised or quieter. And this can be really scary. You've relied on the stress response and the way you deal with it to be rewarded in the world, to be in your gifts, to be in your channel. So there is an adjustment period where you learn to hone your gifts without being in your wounding doing it. But I just want to emphasize that healing And building focus for yourself is possible, and it doesn't mean a destruction of who you are. No, I really want you to be honest with yourself if the ADHD diagnosis and neurodivergent kind of framework is a positive part of your identity and you don't want to let that go. Okay. The degree to which people throw around these labels, I'm autistic, I'm AUDHD, this now autistic plus ADHD combination, it's so soothing to be able to have a diagnosis. Remember me in the doctor's office 15 years ago? I was relieved. I get it. And when we really clutch onto holding that diagnosis as a label and an identity for ourselves, and honestly, sometimes as a way to say, well, I can't do that. I can't do that because I'm this, right? I did it with my chronic illness. I can't go to that event because there's foods that I'm allergic to and my body's going to hurt the next day. So I'm out, right? I don't have to say no to it because I just don't want to go. I'm going to let my body and my diagnosis say no to that. So just being aware of whether you are really attached to this diagnosis as part of your identity and beginning to unravel some of that for yourself. Maybe just starting by not constantly saying, I'm so ADHD to yourself and other people. Oh my God, it's another chaos ADHD day. Oh, sorry, I'm late. It's my ADHD. Like literally blaming every way that you are on your diagnosis. You are locked in if that's the place you're living in. And if that's working for you, great, keep going. It might be just fine. And if you're looking to heal, start by stopping the constant naming of the diagnosis as an excuse for and as an identity of. So let's talk about this like learning to focus piece. Okay. I really fully believe I've healed ADHD for myself. This does not mean that I now show up as super neurotypical and type A. I'm not. I've still got my quirks and I do things the way I want to do them in the order I want to do them. There's probably like nothing in my day that I do in the same order every day. I do a lot of the same things every day, but I let my neurodivergent part of me, I let that creative part of me do them in the order that feels good for her because she doesn't like to be locked into a system. She tends to rebel and then say, fuck it, I'm not doing any of this stuff if I have to do it the same boring way every time. So I need that freedom. I've learned that about myself. But I have taught myself to focus. And it is like exercising. It is exercising. It is like working a muscle. And you can strengthen that focus muscle over time with small intentional practices. And this is where microdosing comes in. This is where the sacred mushroom comes in. Because we work with the sacrament incrementally on a regular basis, several days a week, and because the call here inside of this ministry is to work with it with intention by setting intentions, you can use that intention setting practice, that microdosing practice, and harness the potential of the actual psilocybin compounds that can absolutely help you focus each and every week. Make it your microdosing intention. Show me what it looks like and feels like to heal. Show me what it looks like and feels like to focus. Show me what I need to know to become a more focused person around my work, my family. Show me what I need to know to be able to stick with the task through to completion, even though I don't like it, even though it's uncomfortable. Okay. So setting those microdosing intentions, working with the sacred mushroom specifically to help you focus. I mean, y'all, we pulled 100 members of the ministry last year when we were launching the embodimicrodosing.com website, the brand new website for the ministry, and pulled 100 members with a simple poll of about 15 different benefits, possible benefits. Do you think the mushroom helps you with blank? And on the one that asked with focus, 92 of the 100 members of the ministry said, yes, the mushroom helps me focus. So there's our science. It's just straight up data from within a group of 100 people who are working specifically with the liquid formula that we share inside the Sacrament Shop at embodimicrodosing.com/shop. All the links are in the show notes. Yes, the active ingredient is sacred mushrooms. And with doses as little as 2, 3, 4 drops, some 8, 9, 10 drops. For me, it's about between 4 and 6 drops on an average day. This mushroom specifically helps with focus. I would not have finished my book last month without this mushroom. I would not have finished the book. I would take a dose, sometimes even 1 or 2 drops. Even if I dosed that morning, let's say I was writing later in the day, take a little booster dose right before dosing, say a little prayer. Show me medicine, show me how to focus on the book. And within the writing of the book, just like how I explained I am within the construct of my day, I am not the writer that sits down and starts a chapter and moves all the way through it until I get to the end of the chapter and then read it through again and edit it, right? In this some sort of like a very streamlined way. I am literally like, okay, oh, I'm writing this paragraph. Oh gosh, there's something this is reminding me of back in that other chapter. Let me go back and go over there. Or like how I clean my house. Right? I don't just clean one room at a time. I need to bounce around a little bit. That's that ADHD air quotes part of me. And I let her work that way, but I stay with the task, the writing. The Pomodoro technique, these are working in 25-minute focused chunks. I don't know who developed this. It's brilliant. Set a timer, 25 minutes. You can do it for 25 minutes. If that feels daunting, set a timer for 10 minutes and stay with the one task. Yeah, unloading the dishwasher is like one of my least favorite things in the world. I freaking hate it more than anything. I used to unload it like 2 dishes at a time and then go do something else because I was so uncomfortable with doing the thing I didn't like to do. Really, the thing that stressed me out. I have had to learn to stay with the dishwasher. And yes, this morning I unloaded everything onto the counter and then did something else and then came back and unloaded everything onto the counter into the cabinets. Done. Fine, it got done. I've made progress. Is it a big deal if I do 2 dishes at a time? No, in the grand scheme of things, but am I doing 2 dishes at a time while I'm trying to cook dinner, while I'm trying to, talk to my 9-year-old, while my phone is dinging with notifications from the ministry? Like that level of chaos, getting into that level of ADHD chaos is not good for me. Did not make me my highest and best self. Does not make me speak lovingly to the people around me. Totally throws me into my chaos, trauma, stress response. Okay, so learning to stay with a task and complete it as much as I can, or within that 25-minute or 10-minute focused chunk of window of time, has made me a more resilient and stronger person. Okay, so challenging yourself, stretching yourself, working that muscle. And then just knowing yourself too, like my menstrual cycle, I can create more and focus more during the first half of the cycle. And in my second half, I don't put as much pressure on myself to stay and focus. That doesn't mean that I go wild and go right back to creating insane amounts of chaos and starting 9 new projects and finishing none of them, right? That does not good for me. That does not make me my highest and best self, even though it seems really fun at the time. But I just know here's where I am in my cycle. Where can I give myself from grace? Where can I recognize, oh, I'm doing the thing I do because I feel stressed out and it feels more fun to start and stop. And just work with yourself, know yourself, love yourself, connect with the little girl or the little boy who jumped all over the place trying 10,000 different art classes and sports and after school activities because sticking with one felt boring, right? There are supplements that I use. And let's talk about caffeine real quick because I am caffeinated for this. Caffeine is a stimulant. I have gone back and forth for over 10 years with quitting caffeine, swearing it off. It's the devil. It's poison. I can't do it. I'll never drink it again. And coming back to caffeine and saying, oh, dear God, I love you. Thank you, caffeine, for existing. Right now, I have found the best balance I've ever had, which is about once or twice a week. I allow some coffee, 1 cup, sometimes even half a cup, or some black tea, 1 cup. Sometimes I decaf the tea. I'll like steep it and dump it and then steep a second cup. I think caffeine is very easily abused because of this ADHD adaptive stress response that exists in our culture among so many people. And I think that caffeine is an extremely accepted drug. And let's be honest, it is a drug. It's addicting. It's very powerful, extremely loud. And I think can be very helpful. Look, if there's a choice between a stimulant medication, especially for a kid, and coffee, I can't even tell you how many people have said things to me like, I would never give coffee to my child, but would give them Adderall and think that that's somehow better. In my opinion, you're doing your child a massive disservice if you have not tried first changing their diet. We know the literature tells us it's absolutely 1,000% conclusive that food dyes and preservatives cause that stress response in the body that can lead to ADHD. Conclusive. And caffeine is a perfectly, I think, acceptable stimulant to try before a medication, especially for a child. So, a little bit of coffee. I used it with my oldest child when we started to see some of what the mainstream would have diagnosed as ADHD in him as a 9, 10, 11-year-old. And he'd get a little coffee before school, a couple of ounces. Of course, we'd put some maple syrup and make it sweet and delicious. And I do think it helped him through that period. He no longer needs it. It was a short period of time. I think caffeine and stimulants can actually show us what it looks like and feels like to be more focused, almost like a teacher. And then we can go like, oh, let me find a ways to access that with my breath. I'm taking a breath right now to slow down. Okay, caffeine speeds me up, which feels exciting and feels like, ooh, I'm focused and I have energy until the crash, right? And trying stuff like lion's mane mushroom, which FYI just pairs beautifully with psilocybin, with sacred mushrooms. It's part of the Stamets stack, along with niacin, vitamin B2. You don't have to do the niacin. The lion's mane and a microdose of psilocybin are a fantastic combo for focus. And even the lion's mane on its own, if it's not a microdosing day, I think is incredible for ADHD-like tendencies. It supports neurogenesis. It's amazing for the aging brain, the Alzheimer's brain, kind of a no-brainer from a functional mushroom standpoint. That's our brain mushroom. And there's dozens of other supplements. There's so much on the market right now. I'm not going to get into all of that. I don't mess with too many of them. But it's not always about getting more jacked. It's not always about what can I take that will stimulate my brain. A lot of times it's about calming the fuck down. That focus isn't there because the speed is too high. And it's what happened for me when I started doing a lot of really consistent breath work, meditation, somatic techniques, vagal toning techniques. When I really got into the embodiment piece a few years ago and realized like, oh, I'm actually that ADH, that hyperactive piece, and the calming down is medicine for me. And yeah, maybe it feels a little more boring and it's not as exciting as being right. And maybe when I'm working and moving and being a little slower, there's more emotion that I'm noticing and feeling. And that hyperactive piece is a lot of avoidance of that emotion, or that's the adaptation that developed for me when I learned how to dissociate from the discomfort of being a big feeling child and adult. So supplements, soothing, nervous system support, slowing down, using your breath. If you are low energy and you feel like you need that shot of adrenaline, try the bliss breath in and out of the nose, the breath of fire, really letting that emphasis be on the exhale. To me, this just sends oxygen directly to the brain and it up-regulates, sends that energy. And when I'm in that racy blah, 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 kind of place where I was a few minutes ago, just super duper in my flow, I bring in that halo breath, that slower inhale through the nose and out from the mouth, that one conscious continual cycle of breath over and over again to regulate. Feels so good to slow down. Thanks for coming with me. Just a reminder here, the ADHD typical brain is sensitive to dopamine. Okay, so we're seeking it. It's easy to fall into seeking that hit from the cheap hits, from the scrolling, from snacking, from jumping around to a new task. Starting something new is a hit, right? Having new ideas. And learning to focus means being intentional about how you get that dopamine hit. So letting it come from the harder earned hits like movement. like connection, like learning, like creative work, like sticking with a video for longer than 45 seconds, and through the careful use of microdosing and intention setting and breath work. Also, a side note here, I want to add that detoxing has been hugely supportive for my focus. When your body is full of toxins, yes, our world, our food, our water, our soil, they're full of toxins. And yes, we are designed to detox, but we were not designed to detox the sheer volume of artificial compounds that we are exposed to on a daily basis. When we're loaded up with toxins, our nervous system has more stress to handle. It does not differentiate between the stress of microplastics and heavy metals that it's trying to process and the stress of traffic. It's just stress on the system. So sweating, sauna, cleanses, you know, the many, many ways that you can support yourself to detox gently, lovingly. It doesn't have to be extreme. Detox is a lifestyle, not just something you do once for 21 days and then you're done. But these types of practices, the detoxification, especially for those that feel like they're in more of that chronic illness pattern, can really support and regulate the system. And I'll tell you, detox, I've been doing it for 15 years on and off in different ways. It started to actually work for me when my nervous system was more regulated. So going into detox, super duper stressed out. Oh my God, I have all these chemicals inside of me. I have to get them out, right? And like pushing these detox practices and forcing them and being dysregulated while you're doing them, that's not detox. Okay. But sitting in the sauna or on the vibration plate, you know, taking a long sweaty walk, taking these supplements, being intentional about what I'm eating, all of the practices done with an eye on loving yourself through them, regulating yourself through them. That's deep medicine. Detox started working for me. I started actually passing parasites once I was doing a parasite cleanse from a regulated place. So just kind of nudging you there that, you know, pulling mold out of your system, if you've been exposed to black mold, is going to slow down that hyper vigilant, distracted response that your system may be doing in response to the stressor. Okay, so got that in there. I wanted to make sure that I said it. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, just going to give you some practical takeaways here. Some things, go back over what we talked about. Just make sure to align your productivity with your natural rhythms. Okay, know yourself. Just because everybody else says the best time of day to get stuff done is first thing in the morning, and that really you've tried it and you don't feel that, let yourself get the stuff done at night when it works better for you. Work with yourself, with your cycle, with your energy, and work with your creative flow. Reminder to support your nervous system through all of this, that it's actually a key foundational piece of healing this response. That's breath work. Come inside the ministry. Join us for a free breathwork church or the free replay of every month's breathwork church, first Sunday inside the ministry platform. You can access that in the show notes. Microdose with intention. Work with our sacrament, our liquid sacrament, so that you have that portable, easy, drop by drop way to support your system with a medicine that's going to be from the earth, and that will bring you to your truth. Set the intention that's right for you. Let yourself be in that more distractible ADHD energy when it's appropriate for you. I do it when I'm gardening. Like, I don't garden in an organized fashion, going like, I'm going to put these seeds in this bed first and then do that next and that next, that list in the head that my friend referred to. It doesn't exist for me. I've got this like basket full of things I want to do, a metaphorical one, and I'm just going to stick my head in the basket and pull out the thing that I want to do next. And if I decide like, man, this garden bed is annoying me and I can't get all these weeds out, I might walk away from it and be okay with that. That's not the same thing as me walking away from the dishwasher. It's me just kind of being in that creative flow and allowing myself, permissioning that part of me to have what she needs when she's in her creative hobby. But when she's showing up in her home, in her family, in her work, to really put her big girl panties on and stay with the discomfort of the task. Even though she doesn't want to stay, she can stay. She's safe to stay. Be intentional about your dopamine. Make sure you're seeking it out in those meaningful, nourishing activities a couple of times a day, right? This is why cold plunges work for some people, or so these more sort of extreme, like do the hard thing, because you're working that muscle. And work the muscle. Focus is the muscle, right? Work with it in small, intentional steps. Set the timer and challenge yourself. I want you to remember that ADHD is not a weakness. It's not. You're not weak. You're not flawed. You're also not like super special and different and don't have to follow the rules that everybody else follows. Okay, it's not an escape hatch. It's just a signal from your nervous system. It's a response to trauma and stress, and it's an invitation for you to heal. Really, truly. So leaning into the microdosing, the nervous system work, the breath, the mindful practices can help you strengthen that focus muscle. We'll do it together while honoring your unique, creative, intuitive, psychic, neurodivergent mind and body and spirit. So this is your invitation. What resonated from this episode? What is one thing that you feel like you can take away, practice, chew on, or meditate on? I want you to remember that you can embrace who you are while also learning to direct your energy intentionally and grow. This is where true freedom lies. You are not locked in. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, would you leave me a review? Pretty please. Click the stars, write the words, say the nice things. It would mean so much to me. More and more of you are downloading episodes every week, and it's just got me more and more motivated to really keep getting consistent with bringing you at least 2 episodes a month. Once a week is my goal. I'm getting there. I'm moving there. My ADHD, air quotes, my neurodivergent, creative, awesome, amazing brain is finding her way over to more consistency and more structure the more she loves herself and brings her breath and sets the intentions to do so. So thanks for being with me on this ride. If this resonated with you, this episode, share it with somebody that you know might benefit from it too. And thanks for being here. Love you guys. I'll see you inside the ministry.